you better believe I was cured of it.
Tom, how did you find Carnivore?
Dave, I want to thank you for having me on again. It was an honor the first time, and it's certainly an honor the second time. Yeah, so I know you asked that question to everybody, and we all have our different paths. I know that mine actually began a lot of years ago. I'll say back in the early 90s. I was, my parents owned restaurants, and my dad started this um, a top 10 steakhouse list. And we were beef eaters. You know, we live in Texas. Of course, I don't think that is a prescription for beef eating success, but we ate beef. And I remember eating a lot of beef. And so when my dad made that top 10 list, there was a lot of blowback because saturated fat, what could happen. Um, and so I was enamored by the whole beef movement, just the mystique of what beef is. Of course, now I know a lot more than I did, say, 30 years back. But I can remember, my journey took a few other twists and turns. Specifically, I was rowing at Princeton University in New Jersey, competitive rowing. And their deal was eat carbs, eat carbs, eat carbs, eat carbs. My gosh, we were, pasta, oats. That was the big thing, eating oats. But I distinctly remember writing a research paper in graduate school about the diet of like the Northwest Territories, the Inuit diet, learning about what they eat and why they eat it. And if I'm sure a lot of people would appreciate this, the Inuit subsist on meat and fresh water. Now, seal meat, whale blubber, whatever they can find, right? And then fresh water, because let's face it, there just aren't enough, there's not enough acreage up there to grow vegetables. But my journey took, I guess, a necessary approach in, I'm going to say like November of 2004. I began having anxiety that, if anybody understands what anxiety is, you'll understand this. The anxiety with the choking, that just that flight or fight buzz in your chest, in your stomach. And I was a guy that, yes, I was eating meat, beef, chicken, pork, but I was hopped up on whole oats. I would eat, like the 42-ounce canisters of Quaker Oats. I was eating one of those every week. And I think I did this probably for a dozen years. I'm going to say from like 2002 through like 2012 or 14, around there, a canister of those every week, along with heaps and mounds and quantities of starchy vegetables, which encompass everything, your broccoli, your kale. And I thought I was being healthy with avocados. My prescription for success was eating this way, and I thought I was doing the right thing. And nothing that I ate would stop this anxiety. Nothing. Now, I can remember, I'm going to say probably like back in 2016, I started meal prepping, and the meal prepping was lean chicken breast, sweet potatoes, brown rice, broccoli, extra virgin olive oil, sea salt. Um, I thought I was doing the right thing. Anxiety subsisted. It did not go away. I was exercising. I was on the rowing machine, and I was always a little bit heavier than I'm like, why am I not losing anything? Because I thought if you eat whole carbohydrates and the lean proteins and the plant fats, you're doing this right. But I can remember, I'm going to say this happened like around 2021, like late 2021. I started to kind of go back to my roots of the Inuit diet. I'm like, there's got to be a way to eat that takes away this anxiety, that takes away this feeling of dread, this choking. And I remember it's like January, February of 2022, I started hearing, and this is just through my research, looking up information about a healthy microbiome, about prebiotic, probiotic. I mean, I was running the gamut on what searches would yield, I guess, the golden unicorn, right? Like what will work for me. And I think I came across, I think it was Dr. Ken Berry at first, and I remember Dr. Anthony Chafee, and then I started to listen and figure out, okay, and depending on the doctor that is, doing their thing, Dr. Ken Berry calls it proper human diet. Dr. Chafee will call it, hey, be on carnivore. That's what you need to do. And I started to really hone in on the science of it, the researching. And I thought, we are carnivores. And I remember it was sort of like hard and fast in March of 2020. It was like middle of March. I told my wife, I'm going all in. I'm no longer going to eat the vegetables or the starchy carbohydrates. No more pasta, no more sauce on the pasta, no extra, nothing. I told her this. I said, I'm going full beef, but I'm going to do this beef, bacon, butter, and eggs that Dr. Ken Berry is presenting. And she goes, the first thing she said, she goes, what do they want you to buy? I'm like, nothing. That's the beauty of this. Nobody's trying to sell anything really. And I did listen to Paul Saladino at times, and he had some great advice about, proper nutrition. And that was 2 years ago. And I can remember it happened because I started small. I would eat like a half a pound of ground beef. Now I can eat, don't get me wrong, but I wanted to see, okay, if I eat ground beef, what will happen? So I went to one of my local nice stores and I bought some organic grass-fed ground beef. Now, do you have to buy that? No, but it's what I bought. And grilled up I bought a pound block and I made half of it. And I didn't eat anything for that entire day. I think I ate just that ground beef once in the afternoon because I stopped eating the breakfast when I did the meal prepping. I stopped doing the breakfast in like 2000, or the first meal I should say, in like 2016. So I had already kind of prepped myself to the, I don't want to call it the rigors, but the ability to latch on to a delayed consumption of food, right? Like I could do this now. So ate the ground beef, felt pretty good, and then just started eating the ground beef. And then I elevated it to ribeye steaks, which I really like. I'm a big fan of ribeye steaks. I look for the nice the marbling. I try to buy grass fed, but not always. And I can remember it was like sometime in April of 2022, and it was almost like a firecracker just popped. That anxiety just escaped from me. Had never happened before. And I can remember hearing some of Dr. Barry's live YouTube interviews with folks, and Dr. Baker as well. I would hear them interview people who had some form of like anxiety, autoimmune, diabetes. And we know diabetes can actually cause you to feel like you have anxiety. It can happen. And it was like, I told my wife, I don't have this anxiety at all anymore. Now, was I cured of it? I would say yes, because we're talking 2 years and 4 months now since I started Carnivore. And I'll explain what I mean by Carnivore versus what I'm about to do again for the second time in a few months. So you better believe I was cured of it. So more than 2 years now, I've made I'm going to say like a 95% effort at adhering to that beef only, sometimes bacon, eggs, butter. And here I am now. Now you and I, we talked, it was, I guess mid-March of this year, and I've made dramatic improvements. So I did sort of a lion style diet. I call it lion style because I still drink coffee. And I know that's kind of that's a plant-based beverage. And that is on my radar to stop drinking the coffee. I feel like if I do that, my health factor will increase dramatically. I feel like coffee sometimes gives me just that, okay, I can feel it doing its thing. And so I'm making a commitment for at least the next 30 days. And if I'm good for the next 30 days, I'll do another 30 days. And there'll be 90 days that I do strictly what I'm calling lion diet, which is the beef, some salt and water. And I'm really going to focus on not delving into, hey, let me have a little bit of that. Let me eat, because I really shy away from the carbs. I try to avoid them at all costs. So maybe I'll have another update with lion. Now, I did do sort of lion, for me, carnivore is meat, like, lamb, beef. Sometimes people will throw chicken into that, bison. There's elk out there. You can eat elk, pork, right? But I do better with beef. So, and that means eating 1.5 to 2 pounds every day. That's my goal to do this, because the beef helps me not just survive, but there's a satiation when you eat beef. There's definitely, another thing too, for a while, I would pour the rendered fat over my burgers and my steaks. And this is just what I've noticed. Maybe other people can tolerate it, but I stopped doing that. And let me tell you, I have felt so much better by not pouring that rendered fat directly over the steak or the burger. Instead, I'll save the beef fat, almost creating like a beef tallow, and I'll break it. I'll let it cool off. I'll do that for my wife with pork belly. I'll buy the pork belly and render the fat out and I'll eat just a few of the pieces of the pork belly, but she's got the like the lard that she can use for her scrambled eggs, and she really enjoys that. And so I've been, I guess, adapting and modifying just small, but I think what are important aspects of really latching onto this. This is a lifetime style. It's not a fad, Dave. It's not a trend. It's not well, okay. If you want to call it a trend, yeah, it's been a trend for about 1,000,000 years since humans started eating, ruminant animals. And that's the key. So there's a reason why beef is, or really why meat from ruminant animals is so important. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a veterinarian, but I've listened to these doctors and I've done some research on the reason why ruminant animal meat is so important. So I eat beef. So cows have that bigastric process, right? They have the 4-chamber. Well, they have 4 stomachs, right? So they chew the grass, they digest it, and they regurgitate it, and they chew it again, and they digest it one more time, and it goes through that digestive process for ruminant animals. And what you get is this amazing nutrient densely packed food. Really, beef, lamb, elk, deer, all bigastric, all ruminant animal meat is the most nutrient dense food on the face of the planet. I've been doing this for more than 2 years, Dave. I don't need an ounce of fiber. I don't need a gram of carbohydrate. To be real, I go to the bathroom. I poop probably twice a week, sometimes four times a week. It just depends. I don't have any problems with that. But beef is satiating. You eat beef, you can feel the difference. And I'm feeling it a lot more now that I don't put the rendered fat over the top. That has helped me dramatically. Now that's an individual reaction, right? For me, I kept putting the rendered fat over the top. I didn't do so well with that, but it was a lot better than eating the carbohydrates, the plant fats, the lean proteins. Because I used to be big on salmon and sardines, and I'm not knocking that food source. I just don't do well at it. But for me, it's beef, and I'm not going to stop.
And so, in all this time, the anxiety's never made a recurrence.
None, not one single bit of anxiety. It went away. It was after that. We're talking more than 2 years now. After that first month, that anxiety dropped off. It went from, and it was, man, Dave, it was every single day I had this anxiety. And I remember in April of 2020, I went to an allergy clinic here. I'm like, hey, test me. I want to see what's going on. And they said, you don't have allergies to anything. And I thought, okay, no allergies to, to shellfish, to nuts. Yeah. Once I cut all of that out, no more seed oils, no more nuts. Like I used to love almonds. No more plant butters. The only time I shop the center part of a grocery store is when I'm seeing, do they have any new products that may, like maybe I need when I'm cooking for a family that's coming over, right? I grew up in a Italian Irish family. I mean, pasta was on the table every night. salads. It was very interesting. I remember buy these mixed spring greens, right? And you look on the back of it and you're like, oh my gosh, there's like 75 different leaves, literally 75 different leaves. You're like, I've never even heard of half of these. And we're putting these into our mouth, chewing them. And I can remember starting to feel sick from these salads. I'm like, I'm getting like an allergic reaction to eating these salads, because I used to heap on like a large glass bowl, like a mixing bowl, and I would put grilled chicken on the top with like chickpeas and crushed almonds, extra virgin olive oil, avocado. And I was eating this up until I would say like January, February 2022, right? What a difference a month and a half made when I started in that mid-March period. And I actually looked at the receipt. It was the last time that I bought that old diet. It was like March the 20th. That was the last time that I bought those ingredients. But I had started like maybe a week before this, like March the 15th or so, that I really started in earnest doing this. And I said, wow, I feel great with the beef. I had all those vegetables in the refrigerator. They all went bad. I didn't eat any more of them at all. But I thought I was allergic to everything because I kept having, I can't breathe right. This anxiety, it's just right here all the time. Almost like you're disassociated from reality. Who wants to live like that? And I know I've heard people on your podcast here. Well, it's a video podcast, I guess, having similar issues, autoimmune, can't breathe, blood sugars through the roof. Oh yeah, it's another thing too. When I really, so I don't have a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, and I don't think I need one, but I do have a glucose monitor at the house here with the test strips, and I would just, hey, I'll, do it like once in the morning, maybe once 2 hours after I would eat, or like sometimes even an hour. It just depends. And I started exercising more, so my blood sugars actually dropped somewhat. They were like kind of stable around like 98 to like 116. 116 was like in the mornings, right? And you kind of need the high blood sugar in the morning, even though I've been exercising a lot more as well. So that is helping to sort of stabilize the fasting glucose. And right now I'm hovering, this is before I eat. So I've got nothing in my stomach, and it might be like later in the day, like 3:30, 4:30. I'm looking at like 88, 99 blood sugar. Let me tell you, when I was having this anxiety and I would take my blood sugar, we were talking like 169. I think one day it was like 201. I'm like, and I just didn't associate the diet that I was eating. And why? Because we were indoctrinated to eat this standard American diet, the standard world diet, eat the carbohydrates because they're easy to prepare and they're something that makes a lot of people a lot of money. And I know they're not good for us with the processed sugars. I can't tell you the last time I had a gram of sugar. I think back in April, I had a small piece of the sourdough bread because I sometimes bake the sourdough bread, and I had a small piece. I was like, I'm gonna have a little piece of it, and I put a little bit of maple syrup on it because I don't like the honey as much, with a little bit of my grass-fed butter. I was like, okay, sugar. That's the last, and before that, I can't even remember. So I had maybe like a thimble full of syrup just on that bread. I was just kind of curious how it would taste.
And how was it?
Very, very sweet. I was not used to. I'm like, I actually, I sort of spit it out and I rinsed my mouth out with some water. I can't do this anymore. And I was loaded up with, the seeds, the nuts, the oils, and I thought I was being healthy, Dave, by, steamed vegetables like carrots, broccoli, I used to be big on Brussels sprouts. And we all know that that's just killing us, right? That was killing me. That was keeping my body, just the inflammation in my body was ridiculous. I couldn't get on the rowing machine anymore. I mean, before COVID, my wife and I were going to the gym probably 4 nights a week, sharing that gym time, and I get on the Concept 2 rowing machine and I was dying, Dave. I just, like, my head was swirling. Like, what is going on with me? This is ridiculous. And all along, it was this diet. It was the food that I was eating. Of course, 2 years after that, switched over to eating beef and found carnivore in this way, and haven't looked back and won't look back. And I think I said earlier, this is a lifetime choice. It's not really a lifestyle choice. This is your life. I cannot see ever going back to eating the way I was before the carnivore. I'm kind of curious how many of your viewers out there are interested in doing, like the full bore lion diet. I'm going to try it. I'll probably start it on Friday, July the 5th. That's sort of my day to go buy my week's supply of my beef. So most likely I'll start on July the 5th, go through August the 5th, and it'll just be beef, water, and salt. I'm going to dispense with the coffee. But I can do that because I've made that commitment, for several years now of like delaying the first meal. First I started eating like at 10 a.m. Then I switched to like 1 p.m. And then now I typically eat, for me, this works. I typically eat between 6:30 and 8:30 every night. And now today I ate a little bit earlier. I ate some eggs just because I did like a 40-hour fast. I ate a little bit on Sunday. Well, I ate big. I ate a pretty large meal on Sunday. I had a ribeye steak and some of a porterhouse steak. And then I just drank water yesterday and then didn't eat until today. So I did like around a 42-hour fast. I guess I do that from time to time. And I noticed that for me, that actually helps me. You know what? It subdues any cravings that I might have. It seems counterintuitive, but for me, that works, and I did a carnivore-esque eating plan, almost like, it was kind of lion style at times, but it wasn't consistent. So after you and I spoke, I sort of embarked on that. And that's when I lowered my blood sugars, because I did reduce the coffee consumption, and like I would drink less of it. I think that kind of helped me, and I would do it kind of later in the morning. But this time around, it's no coffee, and ribeye steaks. I mean, I love the ribeye steaks. Because I like the combination of the fat and the protein, you know.
So, one thing that I really want to ask about is your wife. Is she at all on the ketogenic spectrum, or is she just letting you do your own thing?
Uh, a little bit of both. She was worried for me early on, but I have given her, like I've said, hey, listen to Dave Mack here. He talks to people, ladies just like you. So she's heard a lot of your material. I've put her to listen to Dr. Anthony Chafee. I put her to hear other sources that that are giving us the right information about why this works. And as a matter of fact, Friday, she wants me to buy her some tenderloin steak. So she's going little by little. She's thinking, yeah, I think I'm going to start to do this a little bit. She'll eat chicken. She loves eggs. She'll eat like 6 eggs a day, between 4 and 6. I've got her onto the butter kick. She loves the butter now. And so if you look at my pull-out drawer in my refrigerator, I think I've got like 8 half ounce containers of butter. Well, they're not containers. It's wrapped in the foil. It's the Kerrygold butter. We love that butter. I keep a good supply of that. Now, if I'm going to the carnivore, like the Lion diet, I'm going to test it without eating butter for that 30 days. I'm going to just be focused only beef. And I love butter, Dave. I know there are a lot of people that love butter, but I'm going to nix the butter. I hope Kerrygold isn't too upset that I'm not going to buy as much for the month, but I think they'll get by.
The share price might drop.
For people who are listening to this now, I'm not going to say that I was a skeptic. I was a searcher for what works, what will work for me to get rid of this horrible anxiety, this feeling of not being able to get rid of it for days on end. It would not go away. And I realized it was the diet, right? So I was a searcher for this truth. Even back in the early 90s, I was searching for, how are we supposed to eat? What are we supposed to eat? When? So I went out there and I just started typing. I don't even remember what I typed to really find the pinnacle of the carnivore way. I just happened upon it. And I do remember I was looking up a lot of information about the microbiome, about healthy gut. And I think I came across Dr. Ken Berry discussing this. And that's kind of propelled me to listen to more of him. And then, of course, I started listening to your material because it's real people. And I think you're doing a great thing. You're putting us in contact with, hey, this person has this real problem. She's had this issue for so many years. He's had this autoimmune issue. And you know what, Dave? Doctors could never tell me what I really had. They could never say. They would always say, "Oh, just eat a well-rounded diet." I said, "Well, what does that mean?" Well, good carbohydrates. Always with the good carbohydrates. I'll say it. I despise carbohydrates. I started to do this probably about 3-4 months back. This is before you and I talked. I started using a trick that I heard from Dr. Paul Saladino. He actually shows it a couple of times. So I'm a big fan of beef tallow. As a matter of fact, I changed my so I've got a cast iron skillet and I have a carbon steel pan. I stripped them of the oil seasoning that was on there, and I re-seasoned them with beef tallow. Now, yeah, that's what you need to do. I do not cook with these seed oils, these fabricated oils. I don't cook with them at all anymore. I don't eat them. You know how difficult it is to go to someone's house for like a dinner or a party. You're just like, no thanks. I'll eat when I get home. You know, my wife and I went to a graduation party, high school graduation party this past Saturday. They were serving food that was cooked in seed oil, sunflower and extra virgin olive oil, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I didn't say, oh, I don't eat that. I said, no, I'm good. I ate before, and I did. I ate 2 beef patties before we went to the party. But I re-seasoned those pans, and I'm getting to that point where I'm very careful about what I put in, on the fork, on the plate. It's the only way that I know to do this right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give someone who wanted to get started with carnivore?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dave, because everybody's path is different. I would say go online, look at some of the material, listen to you, go to like Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Anthony Chafee. Is it Dr. Wiederman? Wiedemann, I think. Yeah. And listen to some of the information about this. And don't be afraid of it, because this is an evolutionary plan that we are born to eat this way. We're just indoctrinated. So you kind of have to try one day. So watch the material and then go to your local grocery store, get to know what meat is on the shelves. I know here in Houston, we have pasture raised, we have grass fed, we have prime, we have choice, we have grass fed organic, we have ground beef, ribeye steaks, New York strip steak. You can buy a roast. I would say start with ground beef. Start with simple ground beef. Now, for me, the grass fed, just a regular grass fed ground beef, the 80-20 was what I like, or was what I liked. Sometimes you find it at 85-15. That's okay. But I would say start with one day, with one meal where you don't eat anything but beef, and then keep listening to the material. I think it strengthens your understanding, and you find acceptance in it, right? Especially with your material, because so many people are afflicted. It is surprising. I mean, I think you could do this, Dave, 25 hours a day and never run out of anybody that wants to tell you what is going on with them and how they have thrived on eating this way. So thank goodness that you're doing this. See, I would say start one day, don't eat anything but beef on that one day, and then incorporate another day. Maybe try a steak. But I think starting simply, and I'm only giving that advice. I started a little grander than that because I'd already I was already influenced by not eating early in the morning, so I was able to deflect and try a new thing, and it worked for me. But hey, if you're good at doing that, start eating that beef every day. Try a week. And then, you know, I know that Dr. Ken Berry, he talks about 90 days. And I like that he says that, because I think that is around the time that your red blood cells, they once a red blood cell is born, it survives for around 90 days. And that's like the classic, hey, let's go the 90 days, check your A1C, and then keep going, because you'll see that your A1C will drop. And I think we need to realize, you go to 90 days, you can do another 90 days. Now you're at 6 months, a half year, and you can, possibly throw the metformin, the glipizide, well, maybe not the insulin, because some type 1 can't do that. But I would say start small. If you're on medication, stay on your medication, because your provider wants you to do that. But, go to your regular checkups. But if you're not on any medication, I would say try eating the beef. Remember, the body wants the saturated fat, and you're switching over from what I believe is a glycogen store of fuel to ketones, and that's really what the heart and the brain want. Now, I'm not a scientist about this. I've done my research on it, but what do you think about that, Dave?
Yeah, it sounds good to me. I think doing it just slowly, gradually like that, and yeah, also having a time frame like 90 days, if you can stick that out.
Yeah.
I mean, I always think once you've done 90 days, you're not going to want to go back.
No. I'm more than 2 years into this. Another thing too, you're going to be tempted many, many times. I have found that water is a great temptation breaker. Drinking water. Now, I'm not saying overconsume water, okay? But sip it at times, right? I attempt to drink, a half a gallon to a gallon a day. It depends on what my day is like. If I'm going to exercise, right, currently today it was very hot, so I was hydrating, sort of the whole day. But yeah, you're right, Dave. You go to the 90th day. On that 91st day, you're like, I'll never go back to. And I'm not just talking about carbohydrates. I'm talking about just sneaking in like that avocado oil, or dousing your salad with extra virgin olive oil. You're going to stop that. Because the beef is so satisfying. It satiates. I would always say you have to try it to actually do it, to understand what I mean by the satiation of the protein and the fat combination. When you cut that steak or you eat that burger, and don't add anything. It's the patty. If you like some salt on it, salt.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, of course.
So, Tom, if people want to reach out to you, how can they get in contact?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram page. My Instagram handle is Vortex Beef. It is @VortexBeef.
Awesome.
Vortex Beef. Yeah, they can find me out there. I sometimes post some photos of some of the steaks that I like to cook.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'll link to that below. So Tom, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on again, Dave.